Tips and ideas for decorating a bedroom in vintage style. You'll soon find that when it comes to vintage furnishings, paint can be your best friend. Even if a vintage piece is scuffed or stained, it's easy to give it a makeover with a bright new coat of colorful paint, as seen here in the lovely turquoise bedside dresser from Margot Austin. Although there is no hard and fast vintage color scheme, you'll generally find that the vintage palette is soft in intensity, uses a lot of creamy white, and gets colorful with mint or moss green, pink, soft blue, palest lavender or buttery yellow. This isn't the decorating style for dark colors, intense brights, too much beige or brown, or earth tones. One of the most fun aspects of vintage decor is how well it lends itself to a wide range of DIY projects. Case in point, the bedroom shown here. That funky headboard? It's heavy cardboard cut into the desired shape and then covered with wallpaper. The pretty jewelry display on the wall? That's as easy as using a paper-laced doily as a stencil to create the romantic design, then screwing a variety of vintage hooks into the mix to hold jewelry, scarves, vintage clothing, or whatever else you fancy. If you're lucky enough to find or inherit a gorgeous vintage piece of furniture, such as the bed shown here, display it to its best advantage with a simple color scheme and a wallpapered accent wall that adds more vintage style to the room. Wondering how to decorate that tiny attic bedroom? Furnish it with vintage finds, cover the walls with cheery wallpaper that has a vintage feel, top the bed with vintage-inspired bedding, and voila! An airy, cute and welcoming space. Note the repurposed stepladder used as an end table. It's hard to match the charm of genuine vintage bedding. You can sometimes find textile treasures at thrift stores or antique shops, or online through Etsy or eBay. Keep in mind, however, that vintage fabric is delicate, so you'll need to take extra care with decades-old bedding. Decorating in vintage style doesn't mean you can't get colorful. Case in point, this cheerful bedroom makes happy use of mostly primary hues for a wonderfully upbeat look. When you choose vintage furniture designed in a glamorous style, such as Hollywood Regency, your bedroom takes on a sophisticated, expensive and movie star from the 40s elegance. By choosing a soft color scheme and adding interest with just one or two slightly brighter accent colors, you'll create a tranquil feel in your vintage bedroom. While many bedrooms decorated with vintage pieces have a decidedly feminine flair, the style isn't limited to the ladies. Stick with a quiet palette of mossy green and soft tan, and the room takes on a tranquil, gender-neutral vibe that would please just about any man, or any woman, for that matter. The wonderful rustic headboard shown here was made from a repurposed vintage door by Vintage Headboards. Because decorating with vintage finds means furnishings are often a bit ragged, mismatched, or in need of a bit of love, the style lends itself particularly well to DIY projects, such as the wall covered with old shutters shown here. Let your imagination run wild. The Hawaiian-inspired accents in this vintage bedroom from Bella Mancini Designs add a dash of fun to the space. Tropical and Hawaiian motifs were a popular look in the 1950s. You're not going to find authentic vintage pieces at your local big box furniture store. Instead, think of it as a hunt. You're looking for affordable furnishings that have been well loved through the decades. Your best bet are places like flea markets, secondhand stores, antique malls and shops, Craigslist, or even garage sales. The vintage style works well with many other decorating themes, including rustic. In this lovely bedroom from Marianne Songbird, a rustic wooden headboard takes on a tinge of sweetness when strung with fairy lights and matched with vintage bedding. Using just a few vintage pieces in a room is a great way to add character without going overboard. In this coastal-influenced bedroom from designer Phoebe Howard, a vintage wooden bed and rug help create a soothing vibe. Every bedroom deserves a comfortable sitting area, even if it is only a chair tucked in the corner. But this lovely vintage sitting spot from designer Emily Henderson does it right. Even in an overall contemporary setting, a vintage chair is an excellent choice. Think industrial, minimalist, or highly contemporary are your only choices when decorating a converted loft, or a rugged space with exposed brick walls? Then take a look at the lovely vintage bedroom shown here. Vintage style is a great way to soften a space that might otherwise be cold and uncomfortable. Because vintage finds are outside the typical contemporary mass-produced items you'll find in most decorating stores, it's fun to play up the period style by doing something unexpected in your room. This bedroom shows off the owner's whimsy with a collection of vintage fans on a shelf added up high for this very purpose. Is there something you love or collect? Spotlight it in a similar fashion. Old globes, vintage ceramic dogs or cats, glove forms, hats, dolls, whatever makes you smile when you see it. Vintage pieces are one of a kind, as are you. So when it comes to decorating your bedroom, get creative. This isn't the style for matched furniture, predictable decor, or following the rules. Instead, use a folding chair as a bedside table, lean an old shutter against the wall and adorn it with a vintage calendar, or set a pretty mirror on the floor. Or do something completely different, it's up to you. The only rule when decorating with vintage furnishings is to use your creativity. Instead of a traditional headboard, why not use a vintage fireplace surround, as in this wonderful bedroom from Jennifer Gray Interiors? Or fake the look with a new surround painted to look old. Decorating with vintage finds doesn't mean that everything in your bedroom has to be old. In fact, it can be a bit overwhelming to decorate with nothing but period pieces. Instead, mix a few vintage accessories or furniture with new items. This bedroom, for example, makes good use of a pair of lovely vintage nightstands and a pair of old suitcases given new life with a coat of bright blue paint. The bedding, however, is new, although it has a vintage feel thanks to the chenille throw blanket. And the wonderful floral wallpaper is a celebration of vintage style, even though it's a brand new pattern. Most people will simply add a few touches of vintage decor to their bedroom, but if you really love the style, why not take it all the way? What a lovely way to create a relaxed and highly feminine retreat. So pretty. One of the hallmarks of vintage decor is a reliance on repurposed items to add to the fun, while also helping to keep decorating costs down. The room shown here does both beautifully by showcasing framed vintage handkerchiefs in place of a headboard, along with the wildly creative use of drums in place of traditional nightstands. Let your mind run wild, you can repurpose just about anything if you're imaginative enough. A bed piled high with vintage throw pillows looks so cozy and welcoming. This lovely bedroom is from the All Things Vintage blog Aiken House and Gardens. Look for vintage pillows on Etsy or eBay. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more interesting videos. And please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm.